Hey everybody, Professor Steins here, and this video is going to hopefully talk a little bit about how to make relative and absolute links inside of a website, and maybe even site relative groups. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about that too. So this is the kind of the code that's behind this website that's back here, and actually I killed this server, so this will no longer work, but this is probably how we're used to working with files, is file colon and then 3 slashes, and then it's usually a path on the file system that points to where our files are. So in our code, we've mostly been writing our styles, our links this way, and so this is one of the big benefits of having this folder as workspace option now in Notepad. Is it's under View and Folder as Workspace. So you can kind of your root folder, where you want your website to point. This is kind of a basic structure, I suppose. So these guys are kind of saying, let's look at the CSS folder and then use the lightbox.css file, which is this one here, and then also the style.css file. Also, I have some images. Same deal, is that we're looking into the images folder from this file, and that's here, and kind of using all these little images to make stuff work too. So links to images. Finally, there's some JavaScript down here at the bottom. So these are relative links. So the link is relative to where the page is. This is index.htm, so the links need to point to these files respective of where index.htm is. So if we're kind of working on the same level of the website, it's not too bad. We can just kind of make a copy of a page like so. And I'm just going to to make it a little bit different, I'm just going to kind of rip out everything that's inside of the main section. And that's kind of basically just about everything. That's why comments can help. It can really help you figure out where you need to restart stuff. And I'll just throw in a link to just put some kind of about us page. So if I run this guy, it'll look pretty much the same about us. Footer's still kind of down there. Everything else is pretty much blank. It should be all kind of about there. I don't know why it was text align centered. That was kind of weird. I guess I was playing around with something. Oh, H1 here and H1 here. I probably do want that rule. So anyway, those links still work. We can kind of right click and view source on them. Kind of see that these paths to them still do work. And kind of open up and see those files as they are. I would then right click and view page source in Chrome. Now the problem is if we wanted to create a folder, another folder to kind of group together pages, which is probably something we should do. We should kind of use URLs to help us keep track of where information goes. So say I wanted to create an academic folder, and it's going to have a home page, and I'm just going to go ahead and just make 2 more copies, one for programs or degrees. I guess it doesn't matter. Maybe one for departments. So here's my folder. It's got my 3 files in it. These files are currently not going to have my style sheets intact. So if I kind of look at the page source again, these links are no longer relative. It's kind of because this page, the index page, degrees page, departments page, is inside the academics folder. It's still kind of looking for this CSS folder and these things to kind of be where they are relative to this folder, but they're not there. So if we take the index page, kind of scroll back up to the top, and do the 2 slashes in front, dot dot slash, dot dot slash, and do the same in the images, dot dot slash. I think there's JavaScript down at the bottom. And the page comes back to life, and we kind of have our options there. Should have copied the one I already pulled all the main section out of. In main section, we'll call this Academics Home. Like I said, I probably should have copied out one that was a little bit more blank, or made me kind of a blank starter that would be easy to copy and paste over. Let's take it all out. And departments, degrees. Call that Academic Home. So it can be really hard to keep track, especially if everything's index.html. It can be really hard to kind of keep track of that. So some things do it differently. You might get something like this if you look at it. This is the actual index page. Sometimes you don't necessarily have to use that URL structure if you just kind of leave off. Kind of surprised it did it, honestly. Kind of leave that off, it'll be, won't do it the other way. Let's see, what was I trying to do? So let's go back to this being the real home page. And then let's make a link somewhere in here to academic/index.html. And 1 to degrees. And 1 to departments. Alright, that looks pretty good. So let's go back to our home page. Let's close maybe some tabs down. I'm getting a little crazy with my tabs up here. So this is kind of my home page. Now I have my 3 links. I can go to Academic Home. Note the URL structure at the top is kind of following our folder structure. Degrees. We did not fix this page, so of course it doesn't work really well, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to kind of do these two, I think, a different way, and just kind of talk about how to make these go back and forth. So say we came to the academic home page and we wanted to go back to the actual home page. We'd have to create a link, and we need to go up a folder to index.html, and that could be the actual home page or something. So let's hit back, academic home, actual home page. You can kind of keep track of it in the browser again up here at the top, but also when you hover a link, the link will be down here at the very bottom. It kind of disappears really quick. Kind of shows the path that one needs to take to get there. So again, this little guy, the // can be really helpful in moving up and down document routes. A really bad way to do this is technically this is the path as well. So if I really wanted to, I guess I could, and if you're using some kind of software out there to do this, this is sometimes what the software will put in there instead. And this is usually a pretty clear indication to me that you're using some kind of powerful software instead of just a text editor. So if it tries to map it that way, and this being academic, we'll just go to run, make sure we're hitting the right one. It should still work. Even kind of one path off will probably mess it up. Sometimes when it doesn't work, it's easier to see. So this is called an absolute path. This is absolutely relative to one location. So no matter what, this path has to be intact for this file to be found. And that's kind of where the problem arises in assignments, is that this part usually will not make sense to anything you give me. My computer name is Cobra, or my username is Cobra. So other people might have different things. Probably your name is here or something like that. That is pretty much mostly wrong. Don't want to see those at all. But there is a way to kind of make this easier so that as you kind of start going down, these links get a little bit more manageable. So, video's kind of already getting a little bit long, but I'm just going to jump onto it. That's called Node, and it's a pretty easy to install kind of thing. It gets you running pretty quick. The benefit of using Node is that it makes a lot of things easier for you as a developer. Also kind of gives you some good starting points and other stuff. It's really kind of good to look at. I don't want to require it in the course, but we're getting to the point where it could be really helpful. So if I'm looking at test, this is the root folder. In Windows, I'm going to type CMD in the path bar up here. That's going to pull up the Windows command prompt. So if you had never seen the Windows command prompt, this is it. What Node does is it kind of integrates into command prompt a little bit, so you should kind of get two things, and that's Node and a thing called Node Packet Manager. So Node-V and npm-v will kind of show what versions of those are installed. A good place to start working with Node, I got a couple videos on it, but we'll go with a really simple Node HTTP-server. There's the kind of the GitHub for it, and it's just going to throw a static site behind the scenes so that we can kind of serve our files through a web server. It'll give us a lot of extra abilities, especially in JavaScript and future web development. Pretty much got to have a server somewhere behind the scenes. So first thing you got to do is you got to install it globally, and that's npm install http server-g. And so if you know that npm-v is working, then you probably can just type this command in there, npm install http-server-g. This installs this package globally. Now, I already probably got it installed, so it might throw an error or something like that, but it should be about something you get off at the end. Keep in mind I am in the test folder, which is kind of my root of the website folder. This is my test folder. These are kind of my website inside of it. If I just type in HTTP server, it's going to give me some IP addresses and port numbers. This is 8080 if you have a hard time reading it. And also another one that you could use is just called localhost. So you could just do localhost :8080. Which will probably give you something that looks a little bit like this. Directory structure of the website, index.htm, would be your home page. And so here we are, back on the home page of the website. I'm hit refresh, make sure it gets a fresh copy of it. So academic home doesn't seem to be wanting to work that way, actually. The links to them are going. Oh, I didn't unchange. Need to save this. There we go. That'll be better. Yep. See, it changed. So this should work. And our link structures are still intact. We can still kind of go our places. So I'm going to hit these two real quick and talk about how, because now we're operating under localhost, this being kind of the equivalent of a real website, node.js, for example. This is kind of the equivalent to that. If I'm looking on MGA site, it's going to be this right here. The slash on it kind of denotes that we're on the root of the website. That's also kind of the same as default.aspx, which is kind of like index.htm for .NET. So let's see. Anyway, big deal here. This is the site root. So when we go to start looking at code, degrees, we can just use this slash structure. Slash at the front, this is saying kind of relative to the site root. So I'm going to do that in a couple places. Slash slash for degrees, and departments slash and slash slash. So these pages should get everything that they need to get. And I can click on files, make sure that they're there, I can get to them, Lightbox, style sheet, all that kind of stuff. The good part about this is now that I have this file and it works, dot dot slash, it's relative to the root of the website, kind of looking this way. This is the root test CSS folder. I'm kind of walking a different way. It doesn't really matter how far I nest in my website. So if I wanted to create a kind of a new folder inside of a folder, programs, and put departments into that, or we'll just put degrees in there, and schools or something. Put the department school in there. No and no. Get rid of those extra files. Let's close some stuff down. Kind of got our two files in here now. We'll open them up. Still relative to the path root here. So I just need to fix the home page links index. So this one was actually academic slash programs slash degrees. And this one is schools slash department slash degrees. Alright, go back to the home page, index.html. Close some of these other tabs down. Degrees. Oop. Did not refresh it. Academic home. Degrees. Academic programs, degrees. And still kind of have a shortened form here. If we weren't using path relative roots, I'm going to take these two out. Hit refresh, should break the page again. We'd have to walk up two sets of folders. We'd have to walk up the degrees from degrees we'd have to walk up to programs. From programs we'd have to walk up to academic. So that would actually be two dots and slashes like that. Now, that would still be relative links. We'd have to walk up two folders to get to them, but we would eventually find ourselves to the right place. Still could use it, still could not use this method. Like I said, the more you see it nested, the more this method gets a little bit more difficult. The problem with this method, though, is that without the context of the server, localhost, this really won't work. So that was programs and degrees. We're just going to open it up straight off the file system. And so this is served from file, not from localhost. Close some tabs down. Yeah. This one is served from localhost. This one is not. This one is served from my file system. And so if I try to go to these pages, right-click, open in new tabs, the paths that it thinks that it's going to be trying to find are really here, and that's straight off my C drive. So that's kind of why it doesn't work if you don't have the context of a server, because the server says, this part, localhost 8080, is going to be the equivalent of the domain name. So we don't have a domain name right now, so we're just on a local dev machine. That's why we have localhost and port number. We could also use these IP addresses that they gave us, 1270, that's essentially localhost. This would be kind of like your external port. So this might actually work over your local network. If you're on a different computer in your house and want to see, you're running a website on one computer and want to see it on a different computer, might be able to use one of these two IP addresses to find that. This one would be local to the machine. So I hope I didn't confuse people too much. There's kind of a lot to do in these links, and it gets kind of complicated. But if you kind of keep the idea in mind that what your files need to do, and each one is separate. So this file, if I create a whole new academics folder and rename it to something, um, I might still have to change all these paths back to different structures in the website. But that's just kind of how it is. The more it goes down, the more you have to walk to the right information, which is kind of good. It's kind of why it's important to keep a lot of your core files together into some basic folders up here at the top, CSS images JS, is that especially if you kind of use the sort of this new nomenclature in the context of actually using a real server, it can be easy to find them too. You just know that they're a CSS folder on the root, and there it is. I'm good to go. Start editing it. Anyway, hope it was helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Have a good one. Bye.